I get lots of comments on different kinds of painting mediums. This is for oil painting we're talking about. But there's one question that pops up from time to time, and that is, what about using Liquin? What's that all about? So I want to focus this quick tip totally on Liquin. Liquin is made by Winsor Newton. It's both a drying medium and a glazing medium, and it comes in a bottle just like this. It has this funny characteristic that when the bottle sits for a while, the stuff gels up. It kind of gets kind of in a little, becomes more like jelly than it does liquid. But then you can shake the bottle, which I'm not going to do because I've got the lid off it, but you can shake the bottle and it becomes more liquid. Maybe that's why they call it Liquin. Don't know. But anyway, so the two major uses for Liquin are, one, as a glazing medium that's going to dry faster, and two, as an additive into the colors that dry slowly in order to facilitate their drying faster. Now, I'm going to put some Liquin on the palette now and show you just a little bit, because one person asked specifically about how to use Liquin. So in order to, the way I use Liquin is by placing it on my palette instead of putting it in a different container, and I'll show you why. And I like to reach the palette knife in to the bottom itself and just put just a small amount of Liquin on the palette, because it doesn't take much. And you can see it's kind of thick. It's sort of thick, but the more you work it, the more liquid it gets. So I will just spread some on the palette like that. And now, how do we use it, or how do we use it with our color? For one thing, there are some colors that dry more quickly than others. For example, if you use burnt umber, you know that it dries more quickly than titanium white. Titanium white is one of the slower drying colors. Well, suppose you've painted an area and you want it to dry in order to paint something else on top of it. In other words, you want to scumble something on top of it, but you have to wait for it to dry. Well, you can add the Liquin to the paint and it will dry. It doesn't take much. Now I'm going to show you. I'm going to pull some titanium white right down here. I won't pull much because I don't want to waste the paint, but this is just to show you. You see now, you can see that's a relatively thick paint to begin with, but it's going to take it at least a week to dry. For the surface to be dry enough in order to paint something else on top of it. But I can move into the Liquin and pull just a little bit of Liquin, not much. Just pull a little bit, I would say, and I'll put it right here so you can kind of see the amount. I don't even know what the proportion is, just a tad. Mix it thoroughly into the paint, or into the color that you want to dry faster. Now the colors that will dry more slowly, the titanium white, all the cadmium colors are slow dryers. Let's see, right off the top of my head, perhaps cobalt blue. You will know by your experience of working with paint which ones dry more slowly and which ones dry faster. So now the important thing though is that you mix this liquid more thoroughly into the paint, and then it's ready to go. So that there's one use for Liquin, and that's the way you do it. And if you pull it out on your palette, you don't have to pull this amount out, but if you pull it out on your palette, you can more easily control the amount you pull onto the back of your palette knife and then add into the color that you're working with. So there's one thing. Now, you don't want, in proportion, if you put too much Liquin into the paint, it's going to get too liquid. So go easy on that. It doesn't take much. It's going to dry. It's going to dry within about 6 hours. Be dry to touch, pretty much kind of tacky, but overnight you'll find that you'll be able to work on it the next morning. The other use for Liquin I've mentioned in other quick tips, and that is as a glazing medium. And now, as a glazing medium, you're using it a little differently. So you can use white as a glaze, it's not really a good idea. For our glazes, we like to use the more transparent colors. So if you want to glaze, say with any of the transparent colors, say if you want to glaze with alizarin crimson, for example, pull a little alizarin crimson onto the palette. You see, by itself, it's not going to make a good glaze. But then we can reach the brush into the liquid. Then we can ease the brush into the color, into the alizarin crimson, and then we can use that as a glaze, and we can control the darkness of the glaze by the amount of liquid that we put in. You've seen me use glazing on a quick tip before, but let me just show you very briefly. Now if we pull more of the liquid into it, it gets thinner. A little bit more of the liquid, it gets thinner. Now here's just a little color chart I've done right here, and let's just test that out. Alright, if I come across with the glaze over this color, you see what happens. It has it just changes the color. It makes the color just a little bit pinker and a little lighter. Or I can have a little less liquid and a little more color, and the same thing. Not the same thing. It gets darker, but we'll use the same method. Here we go. A little bit darker. If we want it even darker, if we want the glaze even darker, we just use less of the liquid. And you see, you can still see through it, but you can see now how the less or smaller amount of liquid will enable the glaze to be darker or more effective. Of course, that's going to dry too in about, well, overnight it's certainly going to be dry. So there are the two major uses of liquid. It's just a matter of controlling the amount of liquid into the amount of paint in order to get what you want. With the glazes, you can vary the amount when you're using it to simply make a color dry faster. Just a little bit of liquid into a pile of paint. I want to advise you of something else now while I'm at this, and that is, if you simply want to thin or make a pile of thick paint a creamier consistency, don't use liquid for that. Use linseed oil. That's refined linseed oil. Because if you use the liquid, it is going to cause the paint to dry faster, and if you don't use all that white paint in one session, it'll be dry by the time you go back to the next time. Okay, I hope you found this helpful. If you did, leave us a comment right down here, and also if you have something you'd like for me to explore, make your suggestion and we'll put it on our schedule. Also, check out our full-length videos. Go to DianneMize.com. We have 170 video lessons there. You might be surprised. You might find something you like. And there's your quick tip.